Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. The Podstash is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Let us know where you want to listen, and we'll release there as well.
If you want to help us improve the podcast, check out our shops at blackmarketmemes.threadless.com and dankpodstash.threadless.com. Links will be provided. Anything you buy helps us make the Podstash better. Business owners and creators, advertise on the Dank Podstash. Reach a larger audience, make more sales. Email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com for details.
Washington State listeners, please check out Washington State Anarchists and Libertarians Facebook group. Help us expand the Agora face to face. Welcome, fellow enemies of the state, to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash, episode 27. My name is Nick, and I'm here as usual with my co-host David. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good, man. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk to some friends. But before we get into that, we have some kind of updates, some to be announced stuff. I guess this is announcing it, but to be disclosed stuff. And I'll let you cover some of that there, Nick. So
yeah.
Go ahead and tell them about the website.
We have a website coming soon. Not quite ready yet. Look for that in the next week or two. We'll announce that on Facebook and on probably the next episode or two of the show. And along with the website, we're going to have a Discord channel where you can jump in and be there during the recording of the Podstash and access through the Discord to a private YouTube stream of the podcast as well. So you can hop in there. It's going to be a paid Discord eventually, but for the first couple of attempts, first couple episodes, we're going to let anyone and everybody in there who wants to. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions during recording, and then a Q&A with our guest at the end of the recording as well.
And I'm also going to be cranking out some more video content on the page, and I think one of the segments I've got kind of nailed down in my head, so I can say what it's going to be. It's going to be, kind of a shorter interview, maybe about a half an hour, maybe a little bit less than that, and some other little fun things. They should be kind of informative, but mostly funny and entertaining.
Nice.
Today, we're talking with LeeAnn Jones, the one and only, and James Freeman, the bearded master of badassery.
The anarcho-Sasquatch.
Yes.
And they're from Voices of Voluntaryism, which is an excellent podcast that I listen to and I recommend. So, how are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Definitely excited to be on a show. This is the first time we've done anything with anyone else except for when we had someone on our show.
We don't talk about him. That hurt.
It was rough, that's for sure.
It was a mess, and I'm aiming not to be like him on this show.
But yeah, we love your guys' show, and you guys are pretty awesome, so we're definitely happy to be here.
Heck yeah.
Spreading some anarchy and shit.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here.
Spread all the anarchy.
What did that guy do? What did he do that was so terrible?
Everything. He constantly was stuttering, tripping over his words, long gaps of silence, ANCAP gang. It's like, bruh, what?
Yeah.
What?
ANCAP gang.
Right? He was going on about praising the military and all this other stuff. Is like, okay, first off, no. No.
We don't do that shit here. Not to mention, James has a Nerf gun. And this guy would not stop playing with it, like, the whole time. Just, like, pointing it at the ceiling and just fucking around.
I felt violated.
And he went on for half an hour about his own life story that we just cut it out of the show.
With no warning. Like, that episode specifically, like, right at the end of it, we're getting ready to wrap things up and call it a day. And he's like, well, I can go over something, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds short. Doesn't sound too bad. Fucking half an hour later, the app we're recording with gave us a notification like, hey guys, you're coming up on an hour. You're going to have to call it done soon. It's like, thank God, it saved us. He literally rambled for half an hour. Why?
Which, I mean, I'm used to it with James, but he just kept going on about how libertarianism is better and like how he became a libertarian and praising the military and talking about being an ANCAP and all this other stuff. It was just bad.
Sounds like a confused individual.
Yeah, he sounds very confused.
He's mid-identity crisis right now.
And you caught it all on recording. You got all of that identity crisis.
Yeah.
We did,
It could have been good content, I mean, if it wasn't so annoying.
No, trust me. You guys do not want your ears to bleed on that level. It hurt.
It took us like 3 days to recover from that, honestly. Like, we were still reeling. Like, he would walk in the house from work, and I'd be like, that fucking guy. And we would just sit down and complain about it for like 10 minutes for 3 days after the recording. It was bad. But
so was this a new...
Hopefully we're not going to be...
Was it a new segment on your show, or was it the A Week in Anjo or Down the Rabbit Hole that he was on?
It was on the rabbit hole. We were going over consent, and he said he wanted to get in on it. He was in Savannah, so we're like, we don't quite have the logistics set up to do long distance guest hosting yet. So hell, if he's in the area, we'll let him come on over. I'll let this stranger come into my residence and molest my ears. Bad decision. Do not recommend.
Yeah.
He talked on Down the Rabbit Hole with us a little bit, tried to chime in every so often. For most of the episode, you don't really hear him except for like a few words here and there. So that was okay.
Like, I tried to include him as much as I could, too, because, I mean, he was a guest. I was like, do you have anything to say? And he would just be like, no, really.
Oh, geez.
Cool. Thanks.
That makes it a little difficult.
Thanks for your input.
And we made a big deal about, like, introducing him at the start of the episodes. Like, hey, we have a guest. Doesn't say anything. Like, absolute silence through most of the episodes. Like, this is awkward. You're making this awkward.
Oh, man.
Wish you weren't so awkward, bud.
Right?
Well, tell us
Not my
about
fault you suck.
tell us about your show and what you cover and the different segments.
Yeah, so we've got 2 different segments. We've got A Week in Anjo and then Down the Rabbit Hole. So A Week in Anjo, we cover content posted in our Facebook group, Anarcho-Journalism, which James started back last July.
I started that shit on a whim. Like, I was just having fun fucking around with different anarcho ideas because there's so many of them out there. I'm like, why don't we just make up some bullshit? How about, okay, we need an ism. Journalism. Hey, that sounds actually like a good idea. Let's do it.
Nice.
But yeah, so we cover content. We do 14 articles a week, and then, we put in our input. A lot of it is fuck the police because
I can't get enough of fuck the police. I have a constant thick blue line boner over fucking the police. It makes me happy.
Nice.
And then our Down the Rabbit Hole segment is more of an opinion piece where we come up with topics every week. We sit down and we just kind of bullshit and talk about it. We kind of started it just to be almost educational for statists, but also for anarchists, because a lot of them haven't really seen what voluntarism is. So our biggest thing is that we wanted to explain voluntarism in action, not just as a philosophy, but actually in practice as well.
Yeah, I wanted to try and use that segment to kind of show that there is a difference between voluntarism and anarcho-capitalism, because initially, from what I saw, voluntarism kind of stemmed off as a fork from anarcho-capitalism, but now they're very distinguishably different. They're 2 very different ideology sets, and a lot of people just see voluntarism, oh, that's right-wing anarchy, that's anarcho-capitalism, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, there's some differences. And so we use that segment to try and explain the voluntarist side of things a little bit.
Nice.
It's a fun segment.
Yeah, the black and yellow colors being used for the symbols of both sects don't really help.
Yeah.
That's actually an argument I hear a lot, is people say that because the colors are the same, the ideologies are the same, like as though colors mean anything. But
I mean, not not to sound super statist for a second, but once America left Britain, they still use red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And the French use red, white, and blue. The colors don't mean shit.
Some
True.
people, they got rid of one sky cloth and replaced it with another sky cloth.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that we advocate against as well with voluntarism, is the collectivism and the identity politics of hyphenated anarchy, because voluntarism is 100% just the basis of anarchy. Do what you want as long as you're not infringing on the rights of others, and leave other people alone. And with hyphenated anarchy, it's a lot of infighting, and it causes a lot of division between people solely based on economic ideals, which I believe that in a stateless society, we would have different parts of a country, I guess you could say, that would practice different economic ideals. It would be, everything would coexist just as long as it's voluntary.
Mhm.
So if you want to go be a communist, by all means, that's up to you. Go find you some communists and I guess do communism. But you can't force that on other people, even your own children. You can raise them to believe that, but if they decide, hey, that's not for me, I have a brain, then let them do their thing. Let them go do capitalism and all that fun shit with money.
With
Yeah.
money.
Yep.
Yeah, and we actually talked about hyphenated. Oh, sorry.
Small delay.
But we talked about hyphenated anarchy in an episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, like 3 weeks ago, I think.
Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, we did an episode on that.
So how
It was
did you
awesome.
guys?
How did you guys
yeah.
what, David?
What?
Yeah, David, how?
Now you're gonna get me stumbling over my words. What are you guys? So you guys are voluntarists,
Mhm.
and anarchists without hyphens.
Yeah.
How did you get to reach that understanding of yourself, that ideology?
Well-
You want to talk from the beginning of any form of statism all the way through, or just, hey, anarchy is better without hyphens kind of deal?
Whatever you want to talk about. Whatever.
Well, I mean,
Wherever you want to start.
I grew up very statist. I grew up in a statist household. I went to public school. I was very liberal. Like, I was a hella Democrat. I was a Bernie supporter. I was a gun grabber. I was terrible. I was an awful person. Yeah, it was bad. And then I got introduced into libertarianism by an ex-boyfriend of mine. And I just kind of studied up a little more. And that's when I moved into anarcho-capitalism. And that's actually how James and I met, is through ACC, Anarcho-Capitalist Community.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how we met. And, over time, I just kind of started seeing the ridiculous infighting, and I started talking to other voluntarists and just anarchists without hyphens in general. And I started realizing that this whole anarcho-capitalist community that feels like we need to absolutely destroy any opposing economic ideal was disgusting. I mean, it's just as bad as a state if you're forcing people to do what you want them to do.
Why does their freedom matter less than yours?
Exactly. So I moved into voluntarism. James was actually a big part in my entire move into anarchy, because we met when I first became an anarchist. So, we talked about that a lot. We used to talk about ideologies and, moving into voluntarism. So
My whole story, I was raised very outside of the government, I guess. I never went to public school outside of literally a semester in kindergarten, and it was as punishment. My parents, throughout my entire education, if I started being a little shithead, they're like, if you don't stop, we're going to send you to public school. I'm like, God, no, please. But we were raised in such a way that we became very self-reliant. Like, I remember at 5 years old, I was out picking green beans in our garden, helping plow the field to grow corn and stuff. So we became very self-reliant. We didn't really we did everything we could to cultivate our land before we would go to anywhere near food stamps and stuff. We tried to stay off of social programs and take care of ourselves, and it did really good. I grew up believing to take care of myself, so I never really had the statist mindset of, well, the government will care for me. And I always just kind of developed this anti-cop sentiment just on my own, especially when social media started perpetuating a lot of videos of the cops just being cops, beating the shit out of people, killing people for no reason, shooting dogs. Like, I saw that stuff. I'm like, that's not something you and I could get away with. Why did they get away with it? So I grew very anti-police. Eventually, I came to the realization that I was more or less associating with anarchy without knowing any of their monikers. I just, fuck the state, fuck the police, fuck the law, fuck it all. I'd be better off without it. And after a little bit of talking with my friends, I found out about these different anarchist communities online, and I started to associate very much with ANCAP. And I stayed on that for a little while. I tried. Some of them are decent people with a decent head on their shoulders, but then most of them are just Republicans in disguise, libertarians wanting to shove their state up your ass, and all of these other kinds of authoritarians claiming to be anarcho-capitalists. It's like, okay, so you definitely like capitalism, but you're still pushing for a state. And I just kept going and going until I got to voluntarism. I just kept finding other things and other ways of interpreting shit, and found voluntarism, because everyone's freedom matters equally ultimately. Like, if communists want to voluntarily participate in a commune, who am I to stop them? It doesn't affect me. It's none of my fucking business. On that note, also, if I want to participate in capitalism, it's not any communist business. Like, everyone feels this need for a forced collective when it's nonsense. People will associate with who they want to, and if they don't want to associate with anyone, leave them to it.
I see it a lot of times as people being afraid of the unknown, and they don't know who, they don't know who's going to protect them, who's going to give them their freedom, who, all these things that is lingering from statism. So they cling to an economic ideal, and like with capitalism, and they think that somehow, that will provide everything that they need.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking listening to you, James. A lot of stuff is based off of fear. The fear drives them to cling, like David said, to the statist things. And it's interesting that the whole, I don't know, I guess the group of ANCAPs seem to have been really infiltrated.
Heavily.
It's either infiltrated or it's just a shaky-legged ideology to begin with. So,
yeah, I blame Liberty Hangout for that, with Caitlin Bennett and all of her trying to be anarchist, and now suddenly she's constantly hanging out with these Republican statist types and advocating we build a wall. It's like, fucking why? Who are you? Leave, thought.
Mm-hmm. Be gone.
Chicken leg drumstick or chicken drumstick ramen gun girl hates
gun toting. She has a boyfriend. Did you know that? She has a boyfriend.
They've both come after me multiple times because I made a post about Liberty Hangout or one of them, and then they came and read on my post, which they didn't realize I found highly entertaining and
stunning and brave.
That's great. And she cares. She also cares.
Stunning and brave.
You should be aware of that.
He said stunning and brave on my post. He said it. Her boyfriend. Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh.
I got that merit badge.
Right on. You put that on your sash with your Can Build campfire badge.
They are brother and sister by birth and lovers by choice. So it's a hard road to walk.
You pose a great point. Even if they get a divorce, they can still be brother and sister.
Yeah, they'll never be too far apart.
God.
Especially in the gene pool.
That's not much of a gene pool. It's narrow. It's more of a gene bathtub.
A gene bathtub.
You guys are killing me.
The amount of wit that James has it's impressive. Like, you could say anything to him and he will be able to come back at you immediately with some kind of ridiculous fucking response.
I love it. I enjoy watching
that. Make sense.
So
that's why half of our show is me laughing at James, is because he's fucking ridiculous.
those are some of the best parts for sure. So how are you applying voluntarism in life? I know we're seeing it on your show and whatnot, but what do you do when you meet people and talk about it who have no idea about it?
Well, like personally, so I was on Tinder for a while, and I always put in my profile that I'm an anarchist and a voluntarist. I used to get a lot of people who would match with me solely to try to debate me. They always lost, but I would tell them that I completely 100% believe in people's ability to conduct themselves on a voluntary basis. So anything you do in your life, you need to have consent of all parties involved. And, even if it's just between two people, say, one person wants another person to kill someone, that's not voluntary because the person getting killed didn't consent to getting killed. So.
But if he did, though, go ahead.
That's just assisted suicide. But, I bring up that, and, a lot of times they come back with the same statist rhetoric. What about my roads? What about my military? What about my police? And the biggest thing that we advocate is personal responsibility. You take care of yourself and those that you've sworn to protect. You defend yourself, you take care of your own home, you don't rely on the government, and you don't rely on other people, because at the end of the day, it's you and you alone that is responsible for your life and your well-being.
Absolutely.
How is that?
On that note,
go ahead, James.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say on that note, a lot of people ask, well, how will all this work without government? I can't tell you how it will all work without government. I am not omniscient. It's not my responsibility. But I do know that everything was functioning before the establishment of government, and then we figured all of this out with a government alongside of it. So it would be these same applied ideas without having to have a government to do it. We figured out roads without a state. We definitely got that down. We figured out to take our trash to landfills without a state. Like, we figured all of this out without the interference of a state, and then we just shrugged the responsibility off to the government to take care of it for us because we're too fucking lazy. So we definitely can do it without a state. It's a matter of, can we continue doing it without a state? And so it's a big piece of personal responsibility, trying to maintain your lifestyle without getting rid of the responsibility of it all. And it sucks having to use something that statists love saying. They always go on about freedom is not free. Freedom is not free, no, but that doesn't mean you have to go and invade foreign countries and shoot brown people to keep it. It means that you just maintain your household to keep your freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Household and community. Yeah, it's people can hold different beliefs, and not push those on other people. And I'm just thinking about right now, I was listening to one of the latest Joe Rogans with Ben Shapiro. I know everyone hates Ben Shapiro, but I would recommend checking this one out, because he had, and it just baffles me every time either he says it or anybody else. People say that, I have my beliefs. I'm not interested in making you hold the same beliefs or adhere to them. And then in the next breath goes on to say how we need force through government for this and that.
Yeah, that noise right there. Exactly. That sums up my feelings on that.
It is literally flip switch hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm. It's something in the brain, it's something in the way of thinking, the indoctrination, and that's really the question. That's the puzzle, is figuring out how to unlock that, how to unblock that part in people's minds where they can't make the connection of voluntarism.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that we talk about a lot is revolution through education, because we don't believe that a violent revolution will lead to anything except for another dictatorship.
Because historically, that's what's happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the biggest thing that we talk about is, you spread the idea of anarchy, teach your children, teach your fellow man, teach your neighbors, teach your friends, because the state got to where it is today based on indoctrination by the government. it didn't happen like this overnight. It took hundreds of years for us to get where we are. So over time, I think that we can eventually have people realize that they don't need to participate in the government, and the less participation that the state gets and the less power that they have over us, the more that it'll shrink and eventually just disappear.
My idea for tackling it is treat any and all government officials as though they're just regular people. I don't care what they do in government. Treat them like the normal people, anywhere from president to police to government worker, custodial type person. Treat them all like the normal people and react and respond to them as though they're normal people.
Because they are.
Say you're speeding harmlessly. Like, I don't know, you're going 65 through a 50 zone. Fuck it. I mean, it's 50. You're not hurting anyone. Who cares? This guy pulls you over. First off, you can either acknowledge the blue lights and stop for him, or fuck it, keep driving. That'll probably get to violence a lot quicker. But the point is he's going to try and assert authority over you. As soon as he tries that, if a normal person that didn't have this magical costume and badge tried to pull this shit on you, what would you do? You'd probably either A, floor the gas, or B, squeeze the trigger. Do either of those things. Show them you're not afraid of them and you don't acknowledge their authority. Because the only people that acknowledge their authority is them. It's all imaginary. They only have this power because people believe they have this power. And when people don't believe they have this power, they remind you you're supposed to believe that. It's all a head game. So if we all collectively started treating them like they're normal fucking people, sooner or later they'll realize they have no power. And actually, that reminds me of one topic we covered not last week in Angel, but the week before, where a mob of people in Chicago saw a fucking arrest going on, a drug bust. It was 2 cops and 1 guy. They had him pulled over, searching his car for drugs, and a mob of people just surrounded him and said, "You can fuck off or we can shoot you." Needless to say, they fucked off. And that's fucking beautiful.
And they're not afraid. They took the drugs back too.
Yeah, they took the drugs back. That was nice. Good job. But overall, showing that you're not afraid of them, that they have no power over you, reminding them you're all human. You're just as normal as I am, as my neighbors are. Remind them that they have no authority, and sooner or later, the message will get through. People will either start disbanding from government, they'll start leaving it alone. They might try and do something and they'll get themselves killed, and you know what? They deserve it. Or you'll also have the other option of people will stop joining. You'll have fewer people signing up to be police because they'll know, hey, I might get killed. You'll have more people leaving the police because, hey, I might get killed. Or you'll have people getting buried because, hey, they got killed. And once we can start taking that initiative against the government, it will end itself. It'll collapse because people will see through the illusion.
I think it's really funny that we talk about not having a violent revolution, and then in the same breath, James says to shoot a cop.
That's not a violent revolution. That is violent self-defense. The cops will initiate force against you at every turn. At that point, I advocate violence. It's not a revolution. It's just violence, and I'm all for it. Try me, bitch.
Defense. They're going to bring, violence upon you if you don't defend yourself.
Exactly.
They're going to bring it upon you. So you might as well attempt to defend yourself. I wouldn't recommend initially just going to pull the trigger, because your life's going to be over at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
you already know
no matter what, like, there's laws that say, yeah, you can defend yourself against a cop, up to killing them if they're arresting you for something that's BS.
I do like that law.
That's well, it's not a law. It was a
statute or whatever.
It's case law. Yeah.
Bad Elk versus the United States.
But the other cops won't care. They won't give a fuck. They'll show up and they'll gun you down and they'll get away with it. Even if all of what they did was illegal, they will get away with it.
They'll perpetuate that because dead men tell no tales. If they kill you, you can't say that you killed them in self-defense.
If you can run away, run away. That's what I would say. I get the fuck away from them. If you can just avoid that, they can't do anything to you if they can't get you in a courtroom.
Yeah,
exactly.
Tell them to suck your dick. Like,
yeah, you're under no obligation to comply.
I myself have told the judge, if you tell me to come back to this courtroom, I'm going to tell you to fuck off. And he told me to come back to the courtroom, and I told him to fuck off.
There you go. That's my man.
Yeah, I do my best to, I hate saying this, but I do my best to just not get in trouble with the police solely because I'm not a compliant person. I'm not good with authority, and I don't want to end up dead on the side of the street. So I do my best to, I wear my seatbelt when I see a cop. I got a littering ticket for fucking flicking a cigarette butt, but that's the only interaction I've had with police, because I just do my best to avoid them entirely, because I know that ultimately they're gangsters in blue costumes, and I know that they have guns, and I don't want to get shot. So I do my best to stay away from them. If we do have to interact with police, then I don't comply with whatever the fuck they're saying, because
She normally jumps to her phone and starts recording shit, which is helpful.
I do, yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the video of our encounter in Burke County with a police officer. Well, I know David did, because he made memes out of that fucker.
Oh yeah.
But
That guy was a fun time.
Yeah.
Well,
He was so angry.
Everything we're talking about is it's a matter of tactics, knowing when to take what action in those situations. And I can't remember who mentioned it a second ago, but having people around you outside of the story of the people stopping the drug bust, but having people around you in your community to back you up when that stuff happens is important, because you by yourself, that's you, like you said, facing a gang.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have a community behind you, I think that it's a totally different tactic than being by yourself and trying to avoid getting murdered.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You definitely need backup. It's good if you can rely on just random strangers on the side of the road to be that backup.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you build your community, they won't necessarily be random strangers, or even if they are random strangers that are a part of the community, they know what's up. That's something I think we have, really strongly built online, and we need to move a lot further into building that in real life. Disband the police, demand safe streets.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, I tried to be that random stranger when I get the opportunity. There was, it was actually when we were looking for a mic to start the podcast. We went out to Target a little ways into town, and we stopped in at a Taco Bell to grab something to eat, and we're just kind of sitting there. There's these kids out in the parking lot playing around. A cop pulls up, and he just parks. They come over and start talking to the cop. I do not advocate that. Try and stay away from them. But these two kids start talking to the cop, leaning his window. Next thing I know, his lights turn on. I heard his siren go off. Like the car started freaking out. So I kind of went outside. I came up to the cop and I'm like, "Hey, is everything all right out here?" And he's like, "Oh, they just wanted to see my lights and hear everything, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, okay." Because I'm sitting here. It's two black kids. Like one of them's maybe 12, the other's maybe 14. We're not necessarily the best of areas, and I'm just thinking this guy's about to try and arrest these two kids. I'll kick his ass. I don't give a shit. It's one cop, and we're in an area where cops are not welcome. He's one cop. I don't mind being the one to start shit and take that cop out because he's fucking with kids. But it turns out they just wanted to see how his equipment worked. Okay, whatever. Just don't start shit with kids, man.
Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate they were interested in that at all. Let me see how cool your stuff is. Like, look, kiddos.
Well, who knows?
It's not cool.
Who knows if they were fucking with the cop? Because, when I was younger and I was a young street urchin, cops that didn't know me, I would definitely fuck with. I would come up and I would act like I was friendly, just to fuck with them.
Right.
Just to see what lines I could cross with them. So,
There you go.
I saw a post about that a service woman had made about talking to a 5-year-old girl who asked her if she kills people, and she got super triggered about this kid asking these questions.
No way.
I was like, well, if you're ashamed of the fact that you kill people, maybe don't kill people.
There's an idea.
Yeah, I saw that same post. She got triggered and turned off comments, or
Yep.
I got blocked.
Remember, everything you do has your name on it. That is your reputation. Your only identity in life is your reputation. Make one you can be proud of. If you're going to run around and kill people and have to go through the shame of that every time someone asks about it, maybe you should reconsider some life choices and not do that anymore.
Yeah, maybe you should not kill people, huh? Wow.
There's an idea.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
Such a radical concept.
Yeah, don't kill people under the orders that you're blindly following of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't talked much about military on our show yet. We do want to do an episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, just on everything pertaining to the military, the hero complex that they have and all of that, because we see it a lot down here because we are a military town. We've got soldiers and sailors and Marines out the ass, and it's fucking annoying. I worked in food service for a really long time, and I had so many entitled Army wives that came through and demanded that I give them a fucking discount. I always said no, because technically we didn't have a military discount. It was a courtesy 10% discount that we could give if they were nice. And I was always like, nope, sorry, we don't have a military discount. Fuck off with that shit.
Nice. That so I might steal a little bit of your topic then, because I want to ask you guys, do you blame people for joining the military? Do you blame them for their ignorance, since the information is around and they can absolutely figure out why not to and why the immorality of joining? Or do you give them some slack because they've been indoctrinated and lied to?
I feel like it's kind of half and half, because like you said, there is the information out there, but a lot of times people join the military for noble causes. They want to protect themselves, they want to protect their families, and that's absolutely noble. I don't agree with going into the military for that purpose, but they don't necessarily, not all of them at least. I know some people join just so they can go and shoot fucking terrorists and hajis and all this other stuff.
Especially these days with Call of Duty, and how many of these kids are joining the military after, like, a lot of them didn't even see the whole alleged 9/11 attacks. All they know is Call of Duty is awesome and I want to go shoot brown people.
Yeah. So it's kind of half and half, because there is information available to them, proving that the military is immoral and that what they would be doing is just killing people. But, the indoctrination that we have nowadays, we actually just covered an article yesterday on A Week in Anjo about the fact that they're now talking to kids as young as 12 in schools about joining the military. And they actually started a gamers,
they have a live stream going.
They have a live stream, and they're hiring people specifically to play video games for the military so that other kids think that they're cool and will join.
Hello, fellow kids. I, too, am a kid.
So
I'm young. I'm totally cool.
I don't blame people for growing up with indoctrination, but it is their fault for not getting out of that mindset.
It's definitely a lot of the decision is usually made very heavily on nurturing. Whether their parents push them for it, like with my dad. I mean, my dad's grandfather joined the military. His dad was in the military. Both of his brothers are in the military, and he was expecting me to be in the military. Not happening. But I almost every man in my family on both sides has served in the military, so it's all a matter of kind of this family pride bullshit. And they do it more to carry their name, and it's like, yeah, well, my name protects this country. It's like, not really. But then we also have a lot of the newer, younger soldiers who they sign up just because they think it's fun. They get college paid for, they get a house, they get a Dodge Charger, and they get all these fun perks. So a lot of them are outright lied to, which is to be expected with the government. The government will lie to you to have you serve their purpose. If you're dumb enough to believe these lies, you're dumb enough to get a gun and go shoot innocent people. You are dumb enough to be a drone. And they know that. They know their manipulation tactics. They know what they're doing. And a lot of people just fall for it. A lot of people don't question it. They're told it's patriotic. They believe it's patriotic.
Yeah, a lot of people come back and they realize, that it was all lies. They're like, man, they promised me all this shit. The recruiter just talked it up, and then get in there and it was nothing like they were saying. And now that I'm back, they don't care. I didn't sign up to do it anymore, and they don't give a fuck about me. All the promises go out the window.
Yeah. And then you're a homeless alcoholic, you're even 25.
I've definitely noticed a lot more ex-military that have become anarchists, or at the very least libertarians, than cops. And there's a much, I think, more accepting attitudes towards them for the most part. But there's also a lot of people who are still railing on them, even though they're working towards freedom for themselves, for everybody else, which I find very strange. Just because they've been in the military, people say, oh, you should still die. It's like, that's not on you. It's up to them to make reparations to anybody they've wronged, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Because at the time, they were under the illusion that what they were doing was right. You have to understand that a lot of them, especially the former military anarchists, they were under the illusion they were right. Whether they knew it was a lie or not, they believed what they were doing was right. So they had the best intent. Their heart was in the right place, but they were lied to, they were manipulated, they were used by the government as a drone to kill people. And all they thought was that what they were doing was the right thing to do. Eventually, a lot of them come to the conclusion what they're doing is fucked up. So they start to learn that this agenda of the military doesn't line up with what they want to do. And so eventually they start turning towards anarchy. It's like, I want to do the right thing, and anarchy definitely seems more right than being an invasion force to go kill people to steal oil.
Mm-hmm.
They start to realize what they're doing is wrong, and they find out how to do what's right. So those guys, I can respect them. I don't respect their decisions in the military. I can respect the heart they had for it, but I don't respect joining the military. But the police, on the other hand, they all know what they're doing. They all know that when you sign up to be a cop, you can do what you want. And the big difference between the police and the military, the attitude towards it, the military is intended as a defensive force. They're supposed to protect and all this other bullshit. The police are a standing occupational army. The police are to us what our military is to other countries. And when you can see it on that level, you understand that both are entirely wrong.
Always got to circle around to fuck the police.
Always. Fuck the police.
I'm with it. Yeah, that's an interesting.
All cops are bastards.
Yes, they are. That's an interesting point. Because I've heard people say, oh, people just want to join the police to keep their community safe. But I don't think I've ever seen, I've seen a few cops say that, but I also don't believe that. And I think the most honest answer to that question was, once again, on Joe Rogan's podcast, that Michael Wood Jr. guy who quit the Baltimore force and supposedly turned whistleblower. And when Joe asked him why, did you do it to protect people? Why? He's like, nah, I did because it's badass. Car chases, chasing people down. I wanted that rush. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly why most of them do it.
Yeah, they want to be seen as heroes in their community. They want to be revered, and they want to have power over other people. You see that all the time in just the way that the police act towards citizens as well. And it's not necessarily a noble thing. I have heard a few of them say they joined to protect their community and to help people and everything. But
your community can protect itself. If you want to protect your community, become a part of your community.
But more times than not, you see that their actions show that the only reason they're doing it is because they crave power over other people.
They get a boner beating people. Like, no shit. My Port Wentworth arrest that happened last year in December, I'm not going to get into the details on that. You guys have our draft on that. But after they had me locked up and they were driving me out to the detention center, I figured, fuck it. What's talking a little anarchy going to hurt at this point? So I asked him, he asked me on, why are you so negative towards the police? And I'm like, okay. Every cop, as a part of their job, has sworn an oath to enforce any and all, specifically all, laws. Many of these laws are outright immoral, unjust, cruel, and wicked. Therefore, every cop, including you, sir, has sworn an oath to enforce cruel, immoral, and wicked laws. There's no such thing as a good cop, period. He didn't like that too much, obviously.
There's actually body cam footage of that too. It's
Yeah.
like 30 minutes of James just spouting anarchy to this cop on his way to jail. It was fucking hilarious.
And he was sitting here trying to tell me, like, I asked him, why did you join the force? What spurred this decision? He's like, well, I wanted to help my community. I wanted to be good to people. I wanted to make sure people were safe. I'm like, you realize I didn't do anything. Like, you're sitting here telling me that you wanted to do things not like what you just did to me half an hour ago. Like, you straight up got out of your car on a whim because he was the backup officer. The guy that started the whole thing called for backup. This guy just shows up, beats the shit out of me, and then arrests me. It's like, you're going off of his word against mine, and I'm sitting here not hurting anyone, not doing anything. Like, you really think you're making people safer? There was a family taking their Christmas photos to send out on postcards and shit, and he's in the background beating the shit out of me. Like, this is good for your community. Okay, good decisions.
I'd love to see those pictures. That'd be a hell of a Christmas card.
Right? See this fucking hairy hippie guy in the back with a cop fist in his face. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's back to that mental block between what someone's saying and what they're actually doing, what their actions are. And they believe that they're doing what they're saying when they're clearly not.
Oh yeah. It's all the illusion of being right. It's all a head game.
And James says something quite often about politics and the police and military is that it attracts the worst and corrupts the best. So people that join for noble reasons, they become these immoral, order followers. They don't care about what they're actually doing as long as they're as long as they're following their orders, that's all they care about. And it turns them into the power-hungry people that they are now.
They either join as an asshole or they try to do a good job and then eventually turn into an asshole. Like, I'm going to be a good cop. Okay, you do realize a good cop is going to shoot dogs, hurt people, probably rape prisoners, and so on and so forth. That's what a good cop does, sir. So you go ahead with your noble cause to be a cop, and you're going to turn into another shithead like the rest of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the people that try hard to do, real police work and serve the community, they get pushed out. If they're not corrupt, police forces don't want anything to do with them. And
yeah,
you guys said earlier, eventually there would be a downturn in, people wanting to become officers or even join the military, and that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
all over the country, they're desperate for people, and it's like, what? Of course. Why is this a surprise to you? I know you think you're all fun and cool and awesome and a hero, but nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have people that get out of the force or get out of the military, and they come back and they tell their stories of how corrupt and how terrible both systems are. And so, the more that they spread those sentiments, and the more that police brutality videos and stories and everything get circulated on social media, the more we see that the police and the military are ridiculous, and we don't need them because all they do is harm people.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that these violent videos would cause unrest. There were riots. People freaked out. And now I see videos that are worse than the videos that cause those riots. And nothing. Nobody,
every day.
Nobody, there are the few people that say something like that, but there's nothing like that goes on anymore.
Yeah.
Not lack of visibility. So what is it? Is it apathy from the public, or what is going on?
I think it's partially that we've just become so desensitized to it because it's so prevalent in everything that we see. You see 10, 15 police brutality videos on a daily basis. And it just gets to the point where it's just another video. You skip past it, you don't worry about it. And it's just that it happens so often that we've come to accept it as part of normal human culture. And it shouldn't be.
it definitely fucking shouldn't be.
That's terrifying. I imagine that in a conversation with one of my friends around here. I was like, growing up, when I was younger, maybe I just wasn't as inundated in these things then, but I didn't see so much of the violence from the police and just the boot on the throat. And it's just continued to increase and increase. And nobody seems to care. And it's just astounding to me that we live in a time where even if you get pulled over for a minor traffic infraction, you have to fear for your life from somebody.
Every time we're driving down the street and we see a cop, I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I'm fearing for my life. And if the police were actually there to protect and serve as they say they are, I wouldn't need to be afraid that I'm going to die every time I even see a police officer.
I kind of have a different feeling. Whenever I have cops around me, I kind of get a little shaky, a little nervous, and a little excited. They are bold to assume I have a will to live, so I'm like, fuck it. If this is how I go, this is how I go. Let's do this shit.
I used to feel like that. I have things in my life that makes me want to live now, so I'm kind of
good. I am proud for you. But right now,
it's good and bad. So
I actually saw a video recently. This one was on Anjo. This guy, dude got shot over what started off as a traffic stop for not wearing his seatbelt. Straight up got shot, and the cop tried to say it was an accident. Bitch, please. She said she was trying to tase him. I've seen plenty of cops close enough to know their taser is on the opposite hip of their gun. You don't accidentally get your gun instead of the taser.
You don't accidentally shoot somebody.
Oh,
anybody that's around guns, and they're supposed to be
before you even pull the trigger, you should feel, hey, this isn't what a taser feels like.
Before you even point that weapon at somebody, you need to. This is something that I want to kill. If you're pointing your weapon at something, you want to kill it. You may be damn sure that you are gonna be ready to pull that trigger, and there's a good reason to do it, not just because I'm scared.
Well,
if they get to fear for their lives, why don't we get to fear for our lives?
Well, because if you fear for your life, you're clearly up to no good. You're criminal scum, and you're going to jail. Fuck you.
Rebel scum.
We know their training is, just woefully inadequate. They don't have hardly any training at all, and that's besides their existence. Yeah, besides their existence, that's probably the biggest problem. But to circle back around to personal responsibility, thinking about why people are so apathetic to police brutality, anything the police are doing right now, and why the supposed good people that go into these occupations get corrupted, and why the bad ones get worse. The idea of order following removes all responsibility off of you. You don't have to worry about anything in your own mind if you're just following orders, and applying that to people seeing. Applying that to people seeing this happening, then it's like, oh well, they're just following orders, so it can't be wrong, right? That's the main point of indoctrination, and the main problem in no action being taken is because there's no responsibility.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, that's how the Nazis grew to the power that they had too. They started off small, and they just eventually started doing worse and worse things, and people just looked the other way because they're just following orders. They're just doing what their bosses want.
And that's why everyone ultimately blames Hitler, because he was the top of the chain of command. Any orders that got approved at the bottom had to have been approved by him. He's responsible. No, Hitler was horrible, yeah. But all the fucking guys that followed his orders were just as bad, because they made the conscious decision to, okay, well, if he says so, I guess I'll do it. And that's the fucked up side of inhumanity. They were not human. They were drones.
It's really interesting.
It's the people that gave him that power and authority.
Yeah. It's interesting because everyone knows that Hitler was a fucking psycho. And when's the last time a fucking psycho told you to do something? You're like, oh, yeah, I can definitely do that. You'll get the blame, right, if I listen to you?
That sounds fun. Let's strip my clothes off, light myself on fire, and run around City Hall. That's a great idea. I'm just following orders, though.
Yes.
Just following orders.
If a criminal went out and, they had some altercation with somebody, and they're like, well, I got to rob this guy, and they didn't, comply, and then they shot and killed him, and they were just like, well, hey, I was just, my criminal bosses, they told me I needed to do this, so I was just following orders. That wouldn't fucking fly.
Yeah.
No, even people hold individuals in gangs and mafias. They hold the individual pulling the trigger responsible. Even if his gang boss told him, hey, I need you to go kill this guy, don't ask questions. Goes and kills him. They're not going to say, well, his boss told him to. His boss is responsible. No, they're going to hold the little guy who pulled the trigger responsible. Why can we not do that with police?
Well, and another thing is that, the courts favor police as well. They don't charge them with anything. They don't convict them. They don't give them any kind of sentencing either for the crimes that they commit. We see it all the time. We cover stories about it on A Week in Anjo, of cops getting off scot-free from murdering people for, there was a video of a cop that tased a guy in the balls and got off completely scot-free. No punishment whatsoever. And so I think it takes away a lot of the personal responsibility because they know they're not going to get in trouble for it.
Even if they kill a man, it's going to be written off as just doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck your job.
Just like those corrupt officers who actually they got shit for it, but I don't think it was harsh enough. But they were, dealing drugs, all sorts of stuff. They went into a hospital room of a suicidal man and were slapping him around and having a good time, laughing and smiling about it.
Yeah, we covered that one last week, I think. But we did cover that one because I saw the video and it was disgusting. And they think they can do whatever they want because even if they do get any kind of punishment, it's very slight. It's not nearly as much as a regular citizen would get. I mean, the cop in that instance, he was stealing drugs from crime scenes and then going and selling them. And it got to the point where he literally sold drugs to undercover FBI agents who were investigating a drug ring. And he got, I think it was like 60 months in prison. That's all he got. And if anybody else had been doing that, if a private citizen had been selling heroin and crack like this man was, they would have been in prison for life.
Easily.
That cop shouldn't have been a cop. He should have just been out dealing drugs if that's what he wanted to do. I would have had a lot more respect for him then.
Yeah. Absolutely. But he wanted power over other people. So he joined the police. He assaulted that man. He beat the fuck out of that dude. Pardon my language.
I don't think that he would have done that if I don't think they would have felt comfortable doing that without the costumes, the badges, without that power. I don't think they would have felt comfortable doing that.
Absolutely not. I mean, what normal person is going to be okay with walking into a hospital room with a suicidal man and smacking him so hard that his face sprayed blood, and he actually needed cosmetic surgery to fix his orbital bone because they shattered it?
A normal person would not feel comfortable doing that because a normal person knows without that uniform, the person directly is responsible.
A normal person doesn't want to just go around and hurt people for their own enjoyment.
That too. Definitely that.
Yeah, that's just fucking psycho. I can't even imagine that urge.
I mean, I've had the urge to smack people, but never to that extent.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I'm not going to lie. I did see a post on April Fool's Day. Someone had posted something about a fake app called Rumbler. It was to the effect of Tinder, but crossed over with Fight Club, where you find a sparring buddy and you go beat the shit out of each other. Now, frankly, that sounds fun. If they're down for it and I'm down for it and we both voluntarily consent, let's just go beat each other up. I'm all for it.
Consensual.
Exactly. That's the big difference, is it's consensual. I mean, that's when we went to this concert back in January. We were there like 3 or 4 hours. The whole time I'm running around with my shirt off, just bumping into people and getting my ass kicked. It was a fun time, and everyone was cool with it because like there was this understanding in the mosh pit. I don't know how much you guys go to concerts, but there's an understanding that we're all there to have fun, not to hurt each other. Like, we're going to get hurt. Yeah, that's the fun. But we're not here to, like, if you fall down, I'm going to beat you up more. My legs started caving after 2 hours, and I was falling all over the place. And every time I fell, there was like 3 guys grabbing me to lift me back up. And if I told them, look, I can't do this, they would, like, all 3 of them would huddle around me and take me out of the pit so I could sit down. And it's violent. Yeah. Oh my God. It's a fun time, but it's consensual, and we all have this sense of responsibility about each other. It's a fun time.
That's a perfect example. perfect example of personal
yeah.
responsibility, because mosh pit etiquette is strict but unspoken. Like you said, they pick you up and get you out of harm's way. If somebody fucks with somebody, like especially women, if somebody fucks with a woman in the mosh pit, they get the shit beat out of them. And I don't know, there's good justice there. And a lot of times too, if shit goes down in the pit, as long as it wasn't too bad before the cops or security can get there, they kind of hide you away, get you out of that situation. So
yeah. One of my favorites is like, it's all unspoken etiquette. That's the beauty of it. There was this one fucking kid. I don't know if you guys have seen hardcore dancing, but effectively they just kind of get in the middle and flail their arms around hoping to hit something. There was one kid doing that shit, arms all over the place, hitting people in the face. He got me in the jaw a couple times. None of us were playing that shit. I straight tackled this motherfucker. After he's on the ground, I picked him up and we just crowd surfed him out. He had the balls to come back. He did it again. Someone else tackled this motherfucker and we kept throwing him out. It's like, this is not a place for you. You are hurting people. You're going to hurt us. We're going to hurt you. And then we're evacuating you because you are not adhering to the agreed upon etiquette. We shouldn't have to tell you these things. Everyone else here knows. We didn't get together and talk about it beforehand. We just knew. You don't know. And if you don't know, you won't know. You can either observe and adhere, or you can just fucking leave. We don't need you here.
And it's a good example of how you don't need authority to be responsible for yourself and others. You know, there's not someone standing over the mosh pit directing people where to go and how to act or anything.
Could you fucking imagine if there was? Like, hey, okay, go hit that guy. You go hit that guy.
But you know, it's a bunch of individuals who enter the mosh pit on a voluntary basis, and they understand that there's a certain etiquette that you have to follow, and there's no authority involved in it. It's just people being moral. You know, they act based on their morals.
And there's definitely the whole do unto others as you would have done unto you. There's a lot of that. Like if I fall, I would love it if someone helped me out. So when I see someone else fall, I help them out. It's a very basic concept that a lot of people understand on such a level that we're able to get absolutely violent without causing any major harm, without causing major damage. Like even in a very violent setting, we're all good. It's all kosher.
It's almost like people can gather together voluntarily without authoritarian leadership to tell them how to be decent to each other. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, imagine that.
What a radical belief.
Holy shit.
Well, on that beautiful, brutal note, we're coming up to an hour. So tell everybody where they can find you, Voices of Voluntaryism, all that.
Yeah, so we are on Facebook, Voices of Voluntaryism. If you don't know how to spell voluntaryism, you can probably just go to my page or James's page. I know I've got the page linked to my personal profile. Spell
the word voluntary and add ism, kind of like alcoholism. Same idea.
Relatable.
So we've got the Facebook page. We post all of our episodes there. You know, every episode is distributed on a bunch of different platforms. You know, we're on Stitcher, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and that's all through our Anchor app.
Yeah, we don't monitor those other platforms. We put it on Anchor, and Anchor takes care of all that. So don't ask us where to find it on like Apple Podcasts. We don't fucking know.
I don't know. And then we've also got, we do have a Twitter at VO Voluntaryism. So you can follow us on Twitter. We post every episode on there as well. And, you know, we share every episode onto Anarcho Meme Lord, which is my meme page, and then onto our personal profiles as well.
And if anyone wants to contribute to the Week in Anjo segment, once you find our Facebook page, the group Anarcho Journalism is linked to the page. You can find the page posting a lot in the Anarcho Journalism group every so often. So if you need to find the group, you can find it through our page. I think that's all of our socials and stuff. I can't think what else we got covered.
We'll put all the links in the description for everybody listening and watching, and you can go check out James and LeeAnn's awesome projects. All right, dudes and lady. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks.